Hi, I'm Alicia Michelle, best-selling author, ICF certified coach, and neurocoach. I love helping Christian women discover practical ways to manage emotions with science and scripture so they can live with more calm, more clarity, more confidence. I'm so glad you're here. Find a cozy spot and let's get started. Hi there, and welcome to today's episode of The Christian Mindset Coach with me, Alicia Michelle. We talk about emotions here. That's not a surprise to you, but I think the topics that get the most downloads from the podcast are the topics around emotions that relate to relationships, because we all can learn about emotions and we can have these tools, but what do we do with it in real life when, especially, we are in these long relationships related to family and marriage being one of the biggest ones. If you are married, you understand that there are these emotions that can keep coming up, and there is so much work in terms of emotions that I was never aware of in marriage, that I had to really discover on my own pretty quickly, that my husband was a great guy, but that he wasn't necessarily living up to these expectations I had in my head. And that was creating all sorts of emotions in me. And so during those first few years of marriage, when I wasn't really aware of how that was affecting me and how it was keeping me locked in on how much I was frustrated with him versus what was good about our marriage, it really began to eat away at me and destroy me. And it kept us stuck in these same sort of patterns of arguing. And I know that every couple, it seems like we all have those things that we go back to that are the issues that we struggle around or we can't get resolution on. I know that's true for me now as being married for 25 years. There are things that we've learned to figure out and how to work through over the years. But I think just because we're imperfect humans, there are things that are there. So the question we're dealing with today is, what do we do with the emotional baggage that comes when we recognize there is this conflict, there is this expectation that's not being met in our head, or there has been a fight where something has been said and we're hurt and we're like, I don't know how I'm supposed to go on after this. How am I supposed to keep being nice to you? What do we do with that? And I brought my friends Dave and Ann Wilson on the show today because, number one, Dave and Ann are amazing. They are the hosts of Family Life, the Family Life podcast and radio show, which, if you have not heard, is an incredible show. I had the honor of being on their show a few months back, and I loved hearing from them, hearing their wisdom. And I love that they are so honest, right? They're just honest about the realities of marriage, that even in a good marriage, even in a Christ-centered marriage, there is this emotional baggage that can be there. And as you'll learn in this conversation today, we have to learn in our own selves before Jesus, what does it mean to own that, especially after there has been a fight or after we have seen the makeup come off, so to speak, off the perfect view of what we thought this person was. What do we do with these things so that they don't build this resentment, so that one day we don't wake up a year from now and be like, I've lost hope, and reference that in our conversation. So enjoy this conversation. I think these kind of honest things of what to do with emotions are super important. So let's talk about it. Here are Dave and Ann Wilson. Hey, Dave and Ann. It's great to have you guys back on the show. And I appreciate that we're going to talk about something a little vulnerable today, something that I hope is a blessing to a lot of people. But it relates to your book, Vertical Marriage. And it's about, what do you do when you've had a fight? Because we all have them as couples, and you can have the fight and it feels, okay, fine, we got through it. But what do we do afterwards? How do we emotionally work through some of the aftermath of that? So I know you guys talk a lot about some of those tough fights that you've had as a couple in your books. And so is there one of those moments that you would be willing to share to start this conversation off? What that was like, and maybe what was going on underneath in that situation?
I was thinking, Dave, and I think a lot of couples have a cyclical fight. But
That you might tend to always go back
yes,
to.
And so that was really true for us. Let me give you an example. Our fight that usually comes up, and I think it'd be great for listeners to think, what's our fight that usually comes up?
Let's tell her about the parking spot. The long story short, and it's a long story, but I'll condense it to this. I was preaching at our church on a Sunday morning, and we had 3 services at this specific campus that I was at. It was the last service. I came out to the lobby 5 minutes before the service was going to start, and I see Ann whip into a parking spot right by the front door and come running up to, I was standing outside with 2 of our boys. I think they were 15 or 13 years old.
They're teenagers. So I'm like, oh man, we're so late. And I see this spot right by the front door. So I say out loud, thank you, Jesus, for that spot. And I whip in that spot. And then I get out of the car and I see Dave. He's outside greeting people. I'm like, hey, look at you out here greeting everybody in a smile.
I whisper under my breath, move the car.
And I said, no, because Jesus gave me the spot.
And I said, he didn't. No. I go, you need to move the car. You need to move it now. And then move the car. So I grab the keys and I flip them to Austin, our son.
Get in between the 2 of them, catch the keys. And I'm like, no, he's not moving the car either.
So we're like arguing.
This tells you about our personalities right here.
People are coming to church and I'm like faking the whole thing. Hey, welcome. Come on in. And then I literally said, I got to go preach. You got to move the car. And I went in not knowing if she moved it or not. I didn't have any more time to argue.
I didn't move. So I come in, sit in the back row with my arms crossed. Dave gets up on the stage and I look at him thinking, look at him up there. I don't even like the pastor of this church.
So I get home because that was the last service of the day. I get home about an hour later. I walk in and immediately we're fighting. And again, you don't even know what the fight's about yet, but we are barking at each other in the kitchen.
And at that point in our marriage, maybe
20 years, 25.
And at that point, we still yelled, but this one was really big. I was so mad about it. And our son, one of our sons, who was 13, was sitting at the table when we start kind of yelling at each other.
Yeah, he looks at me and says, hey, Dad, don't you guys travel around the country and teach couples how to resolve conflict? I'm like, yeah. He goes, could you maybe show me? I'm like, yeah, you sit right there. I was hot. I was like, I cannot believe you parked there. And it got so heated, she went upstairs, just left. And I'm sitting there at the kitchen table. Now, here's what the fight was about.
Okay.
I was one of the founders of this church. And when you're a founder, you set the core values. And so one of our core values, I'm not saying this should be any other church's core value, but it was ours, it still is ours, was we leave the best parking spots by the front door for our guests and visitors, not for our people.
I'm like, they're already there. I'm so late. They're already in the building.
They weren't already there. Our staff, our members would park in the back of the parking lot, sometimes across the street. We're leaving those for people. If they don't have an easy way to get into church, they may never come and they're going to go to hell. So I'm like, she just took somebody's spot. Now they're going to hell. So I'm like, this is a core value. And the pastor's wife is supposed to model this. So people I know saw this. So that's what I'm most upset about.
So I go upstairs, not to avoid conflict, because I'm the person in our relationship that doesn't avoid it. I usually go head on. Let's go. Let's talk about it. Dave's usually the one that withdraws, but I go upstairs. I need to get my thoughts together and I need to gather my ammunition, verbal ammunition of what I'm going to say to defend myself. And so I'm up there. I do this and this. So I come downstairs and I make this grand entrance and I walk in the kitchen. I have my hands up. Here's the truth. I figured it out while I was upstairs because the truth is I do everything around here. I take care of the kids. I'm doing the wash. I'm the one that does the cooking. I'm working part-time. So I go through my list. And while everybody's like, oh, Pastor, you're amazing. I am here getting stuff done. I mow the yard. I take care of the cars. I snowboard to be with, we have all boys, all you guys. I wakeboard to be with all you guys. While people are like, oh, Dave. And you know what happens in the middle of winter? I am a mom without my husband because he's preaching. And I have a stroller and baby carrier. And I'm trudging through the snow. And there's just one time in my lifetime that there's a parking spot by the front door I should get to take it. And I yell that part, I should get to take it. And then I'm like, okay, here we go. Because this is usually what we do. We get mad at each other and we just start slinging words. And we had learned at that point that we weren't using our words as weapons, like name calling, exaggerating. I was exaggerating a little bit, but we didn't say you always or never.
Right.
That.
Yeah.
And here's what happens. You can fight your emotions,
Yes.
your blood, and at the front part of your brain.
We're talking to the emotional
I know.
coach.
She knows.
She knows more about what's happening than
Exactly.
we.
That's what I'm saying. Her listeners probably know too. So at that point, man, I'm just shooting it all out. And so then Dave, I'm like, here he goes. He's going to sling it right back.
Now, this is where the whole thing actually turned. Because I'm sitting there and she's over there saying all that. And Cody, actually, my youngest, he was 13, looks at me while his mom is yelling that. So he just gave me a look. There were no words spoken. The look was, Dad, you are toast. She was making so much sense. And it's, oh my goodness. And so when she finished, I looked back at her across the kitchen and I said, hey, let me ask you a question. She's what? I said, do you feel like Kensington, that's the name of our church, Kensington Church. I said, do you feel like Kensington is more important to me than you are? And she just nodded her head. And honestly, I did not know till that question that this fight was not about a parking spot. I thought it was about a parking spot. And then when she was saying all that, I started to finally listen. And I'm like, oh, it hit me. So she thinks the church and my job is more important to me than she is.
Yeah.
I don't feel that way at all, but that's her reality.
Yeah.
And so it changed the whole dynamic. And so I think to answer your question in a long story is often we don't even know what the issue is. And then when we finally understand it, then we can make a choice to go, okay, what am I going to do with that? I'll tell you what, if it had been 10 years earlier, because I was so immature, I would have yelled back, that isn't true. The church isn't more important than you are. And that would have made it even worse because I would have yelled it back, trying to say, no, I love you more than the church. I realized when she said that, I was like, oh my goodness, don't defend yourself. Don't tell her she's wrong. She feels that. That's her reality. It's true. So now you got to ask questions like, what do you mean? What do you mean you think Kensington's more important? I never said it's not. Because I really, in my heart of hearts, like, no way it's even close. But if she says it's everything else, it's everything else. And so that changed where we went. I think that's a big learning for anybody in conflict is have you got to the root of what's really happening? Because whenever we tell the story at conferences, women stand up and cheer when Ann says, I do everything right. They literally stand up and cheer and all the guys are looking around, what's happening? And I'm like, guys, you don't even know. All the women knew the second the fight started what the fight was about. And all the guys are like, I still don't know. Let me tell you, it was about her feeling loved and cherished and being a priority.
But two things that you said. So you got to the root of it, which is huge because a lot of times we can't do that. But when you got to the root of it, you didn't defend yourself in it, right? You recognize that this was her truth and her reality, and you just let it sit there versus trying to defend that, which I think is also really great for us to be reminded of too.
And I'll say too, probably 10 years before this is when we wrote our book because we had another big fight. It was really about the same topic. You're never home. You never engage. You're here, but you're not here. I feel like everything, our church, everything else is more important to you than our family. And I had told Dave, I have nothing left. Don't even care if we make it. And that was a big crisis in our marriage. I would have, at that point, would have left Dave, but I had no hope that I would actually have good feelings for him again. And that's when we were constantly fighting. And he would get out his calendar and prove to me, and I would prove to him. And that, you just don't get anywhere.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe that was, we had gotten better at that point because of our traumatic 10-year point.
That's so key because there are things that if you get to the root of what the argument is about, it's the same sort of topics that come over and over. And how do we keep resolving those? Because if it's the same topic, clearly there is this hunger in you to be known that hey, I need more of you. It seems like I'm not getting enough of you here. What do we do with that when it just is that exhausting same topic that comes up, where you feel even in the moment where maybe this other spouse says, okay, you're right. I don't do that, or I need to do this, or whatever they admit to, I'll be different. And then you walk away, and here we are again, 2 months later, having the same fight. What do we do with those sort of situations? I feel really common.
My first thought, I don't know what you're going to say, is I did not understand why. I never got underneath it. I was just like, why are you complaining? You don't love me. You don't see. And I never got underneath it. Oh my goodness, what's going on is I believed this lie since I was a little boy, and I brought it into our marriage that I am accepted and loved when I perform. I'm often running away from home to perform because people are going, hey, you're good. You did a good job.
Yeah.
And Anne grew up
Yeah.
not being seen. She's the last child. The brothers were more important. And here it is in our marriage. And
Right.
man, it triggers something in her and something in me when it's happening again now as an adults in our marriage. And so to get underneath that, I had to realize, why am I doing this? There's something going on here. I have to understand. And then when I get to the bottom of that, it's like, okay, she deserves and longs to be loved and cherished, and I need to do that.
And I think that's tricky, Dave, because I think there's a lot of us that have spouses that maybe don't get to that point. And I remember on our 10-year anniversary when we were on a date, our 10-year anniversary, when I told Dave, I've got nothing left. I don't even care if we really make it. Because I started out super angry, and then my anger turned to bitterness. And then my bitterness turned to numbness. I remember after I had told Dave that, we were in a Honda Accord. He pushed the seat all the way back in this Honda Accord, and he got on his knees in the front seat of this Honda Accord with the steering wheel in his back. He had his hands on the seat, praying on his knees in this car. And when he started praying, it almost took my breath away because I felt like, this is my pridefulness. I felt like the problem with our marriage is him. And if he would just get his act together, I could be happy and we could be great. And so my goal was to change him, meet my needs, be that leader at home that you are at church. Put your energy into our home like you do at work. And so when he started praying out loud, this prayer of repentance, God, I need to make you number one. I feel like I've made my job number one. And when he started praying that, I felt like God was talking directly to me. And I felt like he said, Ann Wilson, I never made or created Dave to meet all of your needs and to bring you happiness. That's my job. And I realized I had made my marriage and Dave an idol. If he would just get his act together, I could be happy. He's not capable of meeting all my happiness needs. And so I got on my knees in the car and I had to pray this prayer of repentance of, God, I made my marriage and Dave more important than you, thinking that he could meet all my needs, and he can't. It's not his job. Can we have fun and can I be happy in my marriage? Yes. But if I go to Dave for all of those needs to be met, I'm going to be dissatisfied. And so I think that's a big piece of it too. Then I had to change. I was pushing Dave away. And the last time I was on with you, Alicia, we had talked about, I was so negative coming to him. All I did was critique him. And so I had to change my expectations. I had to change a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there is stuff that we need to own. Absolutely. In
Yeah.
these situations. I can hear, though, the wife who is saying, awesome, I'm going to own it. He is not owning his stuff. Or what do I do if he says he's going to be different and he doesn't? What do I do with those feelings without hitting this block in being able to move forward? I feel like there's some issues in marriage that this person will never be this. You have to kind of get to that in some places. So there is some grief that has to happen around some of that. But when you hear them say, I am going to address this, or you're hoping that they'll pick that up and it doesn't happen, how do you not let that build inside of you? Hey, it's Alicia. Do you replay conversations long after they're over, or feel responsible for how others are feeling? Or how about this? Say yes when you really just want to say no?
If you're stuck in that cycle of people pleasing and feeling responsible for everyone else, you are not alone, and there's a reason that your brain keeps going back to these patterns. That's exactly why I created the People Pleasing Check-In Workbook. It's a simple, self-guided assessment with powerful coaching questions, the kind I ask my clients, to help you understand what's really driving your people pleasing, so you can finally see your patterns more clearly, understand what's behind them, and recognize how they're affecting your relationships and everyday peace. Because understanding the patterns is the first step to getting free from people pleasing. If you're tired of the overanalyzing, the ongoing guilt, and the pressure to keep everyone happy, grab the People Pleasing Check-In Workbook and start your path to more peace, healthier relationships, and renewed confidence. Find it at aliciamichelle.com/people-pleasing. That's aliciamichelle.com/people-pleasing.
Honestly, I'll just say it for myself. I have to be so locked in with Jesus. I have to be in the Word every day. I think we all have expectations, dreams of what it could look like. Dave and I were with this one speaker one time. He said, you know what? Some of us need to have a funeral and really realize I need to put to death the marriage that I thought I would have.
Yeah, that's
I
so
need
true.
to be grieved. I need to be sad about it for a day and just, it's not what I thought it would be. And then you close the casket, you bury it, and then you think, okay, what do we have that we can work with? And I wish I'd have known that when I was younger. And it's not to say Dave was bad. It's my expectations and my longings are good. But when they turn to expectations and we're constantly disappointed, that's when those walls start coming up. And when you start thinking, I have no hope and it's his fault, that's when it gets a little dangerous. I want to ask you, because you know what works with this. What would you say to those listeners?
I think you do need to be honest about what is an expectation that's realistic and what's not. There are some things that we have tried to just make as, we've told ourselves so many times, this is what it needs to be good. Our marriage is only good if this. And of course, we're looking at it as when he or if he does these things. And I just think it's such a slippery slope. That's been, especially in the beginning part of our marriage, for me, I had all of these visions of this Prince Charming doing all of these things and saying all these things and being romantic. And it's like, I'm married to a great man, but he's not a perfect man because there is no perfect man. And yet I was continually holding him up to that standard, which was never going to be met. And so I was building all of this. Well, why not? Why can't you? And it happened to this like servant. You just need to be this way. And I guess I would say that we just need to be aware of that, especially I think women. It seems like we have more of an issue with that than guys. But I feel like we just need to be aware when we've locked in, like you said, locked in with Jesus. But when we've locked in with that, it needs to be this way or he needs to change this. That's when it starts to get dangerous because then we're reinforcing those thoughts and then we're putting these traps in our head.
We've created these neurological pathways in our brain that now this has happened as I've gotten older. Every time I look at my face, I'm like, those wrinkles. Nothing else except things that need to change. That's horrible. You become obsessive about it. You can become. I think we do the same thing with our spouse. Like,
exactly.
He's doing these good things, but all you can see are the things that you feel like he's failing.
Now, the guy feels it from his wife. I was on a trip with 3 of the guys in my men's group that we've been together 20 years. And I said, hey, I got a question for you. Do you feel like your wife loves you? All 3 guys were in a rental car. All 3 guys. Yep. Immediately. Yeah, my wife loves me. I go, second question. Do you feel like your wife likes you? All 3 guys immediately. No.
And we all had little kids.
Yeah. It was just, they were like, okay, well, so why are you asking us this? I'm like, I just feel the same way. I know Ann loves me. Committed. And we made a covenant. She's not going anywhere, but I constantly feel I'm really letting her down. Like, yep. I hear it every day. And as a pastor, women come up after a sermon and say, how can I change my husband? He won't do anything. And they hate my answer because I look at it every time and say, you can't. They're like, what do you mean? You can't. Only God can change your husband. You can pray. You can lower your expectations. And same thing's going for us as husbands. We're disappointed as well. Because we all bring in marriage can be like that. She's going to be like that. He's going to be like that. And when they're not, we just are disappointed. Like, man, if we can put that to death, like Ann said, bury it, close the casket and go, okay, the marriage I thought we're going to have probably will never happen. There's still good here.
Yeah.
I'm going to be satisfied in Jesus and then love her and cherish her and bring out the best in her. And it's not about whether I'm happy or get my needs met, which is crazy to think. Can anybody live that way? Because of course you want to be happy. Of course you want her to meet your needs.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm called by God to lay down my life like Christ did for the church and love her like Christ did. That's selfless. That's not about me. That's about him and her. And what would it look like for that to happen? I actually find fulfillment in a deeper way when I do that than when she's meeting all my needs.
I feel like we really genuinely like and love each other.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah.
And I think it's really possible. I think we both started to change when we let the expectations go and we start appreciating each other by telling each other that, texting. I know that Shanti Feldhahn, who wrote For Men and Women Only is one for women, but she said one of the greatest things that changes and motivates men is to say thank you. Just to say a simple thank you for doing that. And hers is all data driven.
Yeah.
This is what it's been proven is she interview all these people with research. And so that's where I started. Dave, thank you for taking out the trash. And you know what I would think before? Oh, the one time, and he didn't take it when I wanted him to. Just starting simple things like that. See each other and saying the things. See each other the way God would and saying the things he would say. And it's not that you don't speak the truth, but I wish I would have taken thoughts and told God all the things first and then said, look, how should I say this to Dave with truth and love instead of calling my girlfriends and complaining about it the whole time, which makes me get even more mad.
And you're just reinforcing that in you. I have 3 kids who are in this age of considering a marriage spouse and dating seriously and all of those things. And so we've been talking a lot about marriage around our house. And one of the things that we've always said to our kids, yes, you need to have the same values. You need to be good partners on how to solve things together because that's really what you're doing. But I told my daughter this morning, the reality is, I don't care how well you know someone, you're going to be in a relationship with someone where you're living with them and they're going to do things that drive you nuts. They just are. And they're not going to live to your expectations. And so you have to come to this place where you're like, I am not loving you because you're doing what I want you to. I'm loving you because God told me to love you. And I'm working through this because that sounds so counter American culture.
And unromantic.
What does it feel like? And yes, there is the romance and stuff that comes, but I'm just saying there are moments in marriage where it is still fun and butterflies. It is. But there are moments where you just have to not be surprised if somebody is human.
Totally.
So going back to that idea, though, of what keeps you, yes, like time with the Lord, but what keeps you in that kind of maintenance mode of dealing with, like for you, Anne, not letting that stuff build up in your heart? Are there things that you would suggest to them? Because I feel like there are so many ladies that over the years in women's Bible studies, like sitting at the table with me or whatever, that are like, my husband does this, or he doesn't do this, or he needs to be a leader, a spiritual leader. That's this big thing in the church, right? What do we do with this stuff as women practically?
We shared this the last time, but I had to go through this thing where I would ask God, should I say something? If sometimes I'm a verbal processor, so if I think it, I say it, which isn't good all the time. Because it just comes out and I don't even know what I'm thinking yet. And it hurts Dave's feelings. And so I have to ask God, should I say it? If I should say it, when should I say it? And how should I say it? For me, that's been a game changer. And I'm always praying, God, show me the greatness in Dave. Help me, Jesus, to see the things that he does right. And so if something keeps coming back and it's bugging me or bothering me, that's when I begin all right, should I say it? Should I say it? And so one of my things really was like, I want him, and I had all these expectations of people and leaders. I think Dave should be a spiritual leader to our boys like this. I had this I'd read books. I'd say, I would say Steve is reading the Bible every night to his kids. So anyway, but now I'm trying to change my brain And so it was bothering me though. And I felt like God was saying to me, and you need to start noticing he's doing some great thing as a spiritual leader. It's just not the way you want, but I want you to start watching. And so I'm like, all right, then Lord, you need to give me your eyes. I need to see that. And this one night he's in the room, he's praying with the boys, and he walked out. And I said, Pan, I am so jealous of the power you have over our sons. He's like, what do you mean?
Yeah, she just said, I pray with them. I read the Bible, and I'm just like, they don't even listen.
Loving chaos.
They're running around, and you lay down there and say something and open the Bible or pray, and they're just hanging on your words. And you're really good at it. I remember I walked down the stairs, and I remember thinking, she has never said that. And the next night, I'm like running upstairs to jump in bed with the boys. It just motivated me. And she had always said, I want you to lead spiritually this way. And it was different than the way I did it. She was like, why don't you just, like on Sunday nights,
family devotional.
Yeah, do a Devo and give us the sermon you gave Sunday morning to the boys Sunday night. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. And I led more lifestyle, more on the moment. And she was starting to appreciate that. That's the way you do it. Way to go. You do it well. I'm going to give up my, picture what I thought it should be. I'm going to let God be you and you do it that way. And I remember one night I said, as I was crawling into bed with her, then I've been getting critiques on my sermons. Like, just didn't even want to respond. It was just like, man, I've been getting some critiques about my sermons. And she's laying there beside me.
Well, and I'm embarrassed to say this, but because the first thought that came to my head was, well, if you would study more in the scriptures, I think your sermons would be way better. That was the first thought that came to my head. I would have said it automatically.
Yeah.
And so I stopped myself. Lord, should I say that? No. And then James 1 says, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God who gives generously. And so I'm like, Lord, should I say anything? Is now the time? And I think we forget the power of the Holy Spirit. That power who raised Jesus from the dead lives in us when we're in him. Right. And so when we allow him to come into that area and that space, and just, Jesus, should I say anything? And the thought that came to my mind was this, and I said it. And I said, man, I can't imagine what it's like to be you. You have thousands of people in our church depending on your walk with God. That must be a really heavy thing for you to carry. And then there is just silence. And then he pulls me over, hugs me, whispers, here, you are my life. And what if I'd said, well, if you'd study the scriptures more, you'd be way better. For me, that's why I have to constantly submit all of my... You might feel, I had a friend say, it's such a pain to have to filter it through God first. We're married a long time. We shouldn't have to do that. But I'm like, but it's the most important. We do it with somebody at the grocery store. We're kind to them, and we don't even know them.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't we take the time for our spouse?
Yeah. Going back to what we started the conversation with after the things we've been talking about, what do you do to repair when you have said something like, well, if you'd studied more or whatever, how do you get past those moments, especially if it's like Dave, who's like, well, that you're not okay. Like, how do you move past those things when everything is still so raw, especially if it's an ongoing issue?
I mean, my first thought, and it's really hard and humbling to do, but is to own our mistakes, to own what we've said or what we've done that's been hurtful, and own it and apologize and come back and say these words. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I'm hoping you can forgive me. You got to give them time. It could be immediate. It could take days or weeks, but I literally just preached a sermon on that. I was wrong when I said, and be specific, when I said these words or when I did this action, I didn't realize in the moment that I was wrong, and I now understand I really hurt you, and I'm sorry. I did not want to do that. Now, again, if you're doing that every day, your spouse is going to be like, you either change because it's going to lose. But if you do it and you mean it and then you repent, which means you stop doing it. And again, I'm not saying we don't ever make a mistake again, but you do change your actions and your words and you start to live differently. Again, not perfectly. That's going to carry a lot of weight. And so it's a humbling moment. And I have to pray and say, God, soften my heart. help me to own this because I'm selfish and I think she's wrong. And guess what? It was me. I
Right.
shouldn't have done or said that. And I was wrong. And I need to go back and keep short accounts. It could be daily. It could be every hour. Don't let it go several days or a week. Own it in the moment as fast as you can get your heart to a place where you can go back and say, I'm sorry.
And you're way better than I am. I think what I've realized, I'm super prideful in our relationship, doing all the right things. But I honestly, I feel like when you're in God's word, it's a mirror. It says it's a mirror. And I see, oh man, I do need to apologize for that or tell him I was wrong. And that is not easy because it's pride. So that's been really big for us. The other thing that's really helped us is praying together. And I know that can sound scary and intimidating to people, but it could be so quick as just to say, God, we need you. Will you help us as parents or just help us in our marriage? Amen.
Yeah.
And God is so on that. And you've probably heard these stats. The couples who pray together regularly, the divorce rate is 1 in every 1,152.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's
Okay. I hear everything you're saying. I'm going to push you a little bit though, because what if you're that person who's like, okay, I probably could have been a little nicer, but he hurt me when he said that. And now I'm like, what do I do with that? Because if I bring it up to him again, he's going to say that same comment. Sometimes, of course you didn't do it perfectly, but I can just hear that woman going, but there is this thing that he doesn't hear me on. And that's the part that I feel like if we could get some healing around after we've talked about it for the 10,000th time, how do I get past that? How do I present it to him again? How do I work through that? And maybe it is the grief thing, like we said. I don't know.
But I think that one, if his words really hurt, said something that was almost cruel and didn't apologize, I think I would go back. I would have to get prayed up for this so that I'm not defensive. But I think I'd go back and say, what you said is, man, it shatters me. I can't get it out of my head from rolling around and around and around. And it affects my identity even. Am I doing something or do I have a way about me? What's the truth behind what you said?
Right.
Like, tell me the deeper parts of it. Do you really mean it? There's something that I'm not seeing. But if I went to you and I said it like that, how do you think you would respond?
I mean, depending on how angry or selfishly I'm thinking, it really wasn't my fault. What I did really wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Or I am changing, you're just not seeing it. Because I think that's where a lot of spouses are. I think one of the things that I would also do if your spouse isn't hearing it, you've gone back and they're not changing. It sounds trivial, but I'd say pray that God will get the message to them through another way, another person. I've had guys,
that's what counseling does.
the counselor, but I've had guys say to me, dude, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy loves me. He just called me out and Ann's been telling me this for 6 months.
Like your tone.
And so I finally heard it. I'd never heard it from Ann. And some dude said it. Or it could be a preacher and it's whatever. God can use a donkey. We can use anything. But pray that they hear it a different way. If they're not hearing it from you over and over and over, maybe another way.
I have to share this story because it's so God. Dave's tone with me felt super harsh. And I said, I feel like when you talk to me, you think I'm an idiot.
This was 30 years.
Yeah, like the way you talk to me. Do you think I'm just stupid? And he goes, what are you talking about? You're just so overly sensitive. And so I had said this, I don't even know how many times. I'm like, Lord, he's not hearing me. I don't know how to get it across to him, but you have to do it.
Yeah.
So I pray that prayer. We go down to Ohio to go see my family. And it was when the camcorders were in. So Dave's videotaping all of the grandkids, my parents' grandkids, all the cousins. And then he turns it off. And that night, I was in the room watching him and we got in a little tiff right after that. So that night, my whole family, siblings, everybody come in to watch the video. All the cousins are there and it's great. They're like, oh, Dave, this is so cute. He's videotaping. And then he puts the camera down.
You could see on the video as they're watching, I walk over to the camera and I go like this
to shut it off.
It's on a tripod and you see me push this button thinking I turned it off, but it didn't turn off. And then I go back. I don't remember what I said, but we got into this little tiff and it's on the video.
My whole family is hearing.
And I am exactly the jerk she said I was. Harsh, know it all. And I literally, her brother's like, dude. And I wrote over and I turned it off. I was so embarrassed, and there it was. I'm like, she's been trying to tell me that. And
I'm like, you're using the camcorder.
Wow.
Yeah. I saw it that time. So, yeah, I mean, it's crazy, but somehow you got to get the message through. Well, maybe it's another person.
A counselor. And if your spouse doesn't go and want help in counseling, then go see somebody yourself. I think that can be really helpful.
I get it. You're right. It can be so frustrating, disappointing. There are people listening that they're like, you don't understand. You're not married to the guy I am.
You lose hope.
You lose hope.
And it's interesting you mentioned the word hope. I was just reading this morning in the scriptures about the word hope. And I think it was saying over and over that God leaves a remnant. God is never, even in the times where he's destroying or allowing destruction to happen to the Israelite people, he leaves a remnant for them to keep going. So that, I guess I would say, and echo what you're saying, that there is this difficulty that we have to walk through sometimes, but that if we can protect the hope, right? If we can protect that in our emotional selves, that is the fire that's going to keep us going back to God, to keep trying, to keep working through it. What would be the thing for you to say that, above all else, do this, right? When you're dealing with these long conflicts in marriage that just aren't getting resolved, what advice would you give to kind of close us up here?
Dave, you go first. I'd love to hear.
A couple thoughts. One is you need community.
Right.
I'm not saying you go to your buddies and you rip on your spouse. You don't want to do that, but you want people that you can trust.
That'll pray for you.
And that are close to you. You're not sharing this with a whole bunch of people. It's your best buddies. And maybe it's just, man, I'm losing hope. I'm not going to get into details. But man, I need your encouragement. I need your prayers. And I need you to call me out because maybe I'm the problem.
Right.
I don't see it. I think she's the problem, but I'm sure I'm the problem. And then the other is you get on your knees and you ask God for a miracle. I mean, if he could raise a dead man from the grave, can he raise a dead marriage back to life? Yeah. So all you need is a sliver of hope.
Right.
And you hang on to it and just you pray for a miracle that maybe he'll do one in you and in your marriage.
I think that's really good. In fact, I would just look at today, Matthew 11:28, which Jesus is saying, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened. Just that. That's, to me, that's like, I'm losing hope. And he says, I will give you rest. And so, I don't know, sometimes when I get like that, like I'm weary, I'm heavy burdened, I think we all go to our places that give us comfort. For me, it's food. I'll go to these places and Jesus is saying, come to me. I'll give you rest. Lay your burdens down. Tell me all about them. Confess it is not necessarily saying, I'm sorry. Confession is, this is the truth, God, of what I'm going through, what I feel. And I'm just going to remind you, he's there. He loves you. He sees you. I just read this morning, I'm in Judges, and it says every time they cried out to God, he heard them. He may not be answering you at the speed that you want him to or the way you want, but he hears you. He's with you. He loves you. He'll equip you. And I would just say, God, show me that you're so close.
You guys, you have so many great resources. What specifically, I know vertical marriage is a great one for this, but any others that you guys have that would be a good fit for someone working through this?
Yeah, I'm not thinking of a book right now, but we love to listen to podcasts. Like you were on our Family Life Today. We're talking about these kind of things every day. We listen to Dave and Ashley Willis. I don't know if you know Dave and Ashley, Naked Marriage.
Yes,
some great stuff.
Yeah.
We listened to Julie Slattery. She kind of gets into the area of sex and sexuality. Right. But her podcast is called Java with Julie. Man, it gets, because I was thinking she does so much work too with porn.
Right.
And we don't always know where to go with that, whether it's us as a woman that's struggling or a husband is struggling. How do we navigate that? And so I think those are some really good resources. Our latest book was How to Speak Life to Your Husband When All You Want to Do Is Yell at Him.
Yes, that's a good book.
So you can listen to Family Life Today because
I
we're
was going to
talking
say
about this
Family
stuff
Life Today. Love your show. Yours is always at the top of my list because it's just, you have a good variety of people and you're not afraid to talk about the hard stuff and not just gloss it over. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. And I so appreciate your wisdom.
You.
Thanks. Something I wanted to follow up on in that conversation was, I think it's really easy for us to have this false peace in a relationship after we've had the argument or we've said, okay, clearly like this is an issue that we keep dealing with. And we just tell ourselves it's fine, it's fine. And there's this really fine line where we have to decide, yes, I am okay with this. I mean, there are some things where we can say, I'm okay with this. And I think that's the part where we have to put it in the grave and let it go. If we're okay with it, then we're truly okay with it. But if there's that little smidgen of like, but I'm still angry, or I'm still longing, or I'm still questioning, there is that work that, again, no one taught me as a young married person, but thankfully the Lord has helped me figure out along the way, and he's still teaching me on this. But I am responsible, even if there is this thing that I wish the other person would change, I'm responsible for owning that and not just stuffing the emotion and saying, well, this is just the way it is, unless I honestly mean it, because that starts to build. That is the stuff that it's not really fun to talk about. It most likely is going to be a lot of work done with you and Jesus first, because that change inside is what's going to affect how we view it and how we interact with them. I love how many times Dave and Ann had said, I wanted to respond like this, but then I chose to think about it and pray about it and just let God help me filter on what to say. And I said this instead, and this is how it changed things. And so there is this third person that needs to be in our relationships. That's Jesus. And when we're working through emotions, we do need to use even something like a simple tool like I teach, the A.D.D model, the acknowledge, discern, and decide model for managing emotions. And that's just simply is acknowledging why you're upset, why it makes sense you're frustrated, having compassion for that, because it is a real feeling. There are real longings there. You did maybe feel hurt by what that person said. That's logical why you'd be upset, right? Sitting in that first and acknowledging it, not just dismissing it. Then going into that discern. So this happened, and this is what I'm feeling, and it's real, but am I attaching other things to it? Are there expectations here that don't need to be here? Are there triggers from my past? Does this make me think of something my dad said? Or does it that thing that in me is gnawing away at me? And when he said that, it makes me feel like that's what he's really saying about me. Am I putting filters on that? In other words, where if he made a comment, it makes me reinforce this belief that I have inside myself. Well, you know what? I really am not very pretty. So are there distortions that we have allowed, the truths that are there that we want to reinforce, but are there the half-truths? Are there the other connection points that are causing more than needs to be caused to this? And those are the points that we don't want to ignore, but we want to get curious around and ask God for clarity about, what do you want me to do with this? What is something that I can work through, or how can I work through this? And so once we've seen the reality of what we're feeling and we've seen what's true and not true, God, what do you want me to do moving forward? I cannot stress, at least to you, and I'm stressing this to myself too, but the number one lesson I've had to learn in marriage is that I absolutely have to go to Jesus first. That a lot of times the issues that I feel in my head, I work through them with God, and I don't even have to bring them up with my husband, because I know that ultimately at the root of it, it really is an issue that he and I need to work with. And that's where that discern step is super helpful. So having the courage to maybe have a tough conversation with your husband, maybe that is what God is leading you to. Or maybe it's the courage to say, when all you want to do is yell and say, well, you never, or you should, or why didn't you? Or maybe God is just saying, let's keep it between you and me for right now. I'm not saying that it's a real issue, but let's just keep it right here. It takes courage to do that versus just letting it all fly. So all of this work, it takes this honest, truly vulnerable place before God. This is why it's not a religion that we follow. This is that relationship with Jesus every day, where we are casting our burdens on him. We are asking for him to come in to our lives, not just in a superficial way, but we're saying in this marriage fight or in this situation in my parenting, I need help. I can't do this. I don't know what to do with these feelings. I need you to help me. That is that not easy place to be, but that moves our relationship with God from something where we're just checking boxes. We're just doing the thing saying, God, I need you. So if you are in a place where you're feeling like there are these ongoing things and there is this hurt that's just hanging out and heavy, this is the point where you go to God. God is revealing that, not so that we can be in more pain, but so that there is an opportunity for healing. And he's not going to force us to face things or to work through things. He is going to allow them to come to the surface and invite us into that work. So I just encourage you today that if that's where you're at, take a moment to be outside by yourself, walk around the mall and find a quiet corner, whatever that looks like for you. There's no right way to do this sort of thing, but really be honest about what are the feelings inside that maybe are lingering from a fight or from these ongoing issues that you feel like just never get resolved, and ask God, what do I do with this? How can I acknowledge them as being real? How can I discern what I may be adding to it just because of my own past or my own interpretation? And God, what do you want me to do from here? Just let him guide you and love you and bring you healing. You don't have to stay in these places. He wants to help. So if this touched you, I encourage you to spend that time with Jesus and check out some of these other resources like what the Wilsons offer. The Vertical Marriage book is specifically about realigning your marriage to line up with Jesus first. How to Speak Life to Your Husband When All You Want to Do Is Yell at Him is a fantastic resource that Anne wrote herself. You could hear some of the stories that she's sharing here, just her own frustration with like, I want things to change and I would rather just yell at you and get my way, you know? It's a very honest and great, powerful resource. So either of those, I would encourage you to start there. And friend, I'm going to leave a link to a couple episodes here where we talk, even including another episode I did with the Wilsons on marriage, just to give you more guidelines and more encouragement in this area, because it can feel so big. But I hope you heard today that if you're feeling like this, you are not alone. Don't feel like you're the only couple that deals with this, that every other couple has it figured out, that this is part of figuring out that rhythm of marriage and the rhythm of having the Holy Spirit as your guide, your partner, your help in relationships like marriage. Take care, friend. I look forward to seeing you back here next week for another episode, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for joining me today. For full show notes and helpful next step resources, visit aliciamichelle.com/podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, I'd be honored if you'd leave a 5-star rating and review. Thanks for being here. I'll see you back next week.